Welcome back to the sweatshop, boys and girls. In today's video, we're going to be working on this 2017 Nissan Qashqai. In this video, boys and girls, I'm going to be showing you how to swap out brakes on this 2017 Qashqai. There are a few different variations. We're going to be showing you how to do the front and rear. If you're doing just the front brakes, it is all the same for all of the models as far as I understand. If you are doing the rear, there are two variations. There is an electronic parking brake, which does carry different torque specs for the caliper, and the caliper setup is of course different. That being said, boys and girls, what we are working on today is a non-electric parking brake system in the rear. This thing is a front-wheel drive SV model Qashqai. So hopefully you are working on the same model at home. Of course, boys and girls, you can see our choices here locally. All of this stuff has risen dramatically. I can't believe, to be honest, what the prices have inflated to. It is absolutely ridiculous. In my opinion, it is robbery. But hey, what to do? Luckily, I was able to get the customer something that is relatively decently priced as compared to some of the stuff that's out there. This vehicle here, a little bit of backstory, is a leased vehicle and will be going back to the dealership. So they're not looking to spend all sorts of money in servicing the vehicle. So this is the first time in a long time that I'm actually throwing on some what are considered to be second line pads. They are a silent stop. That is the brand name, of course. I'm not sure whether they're good or not. Maybe you boys and girls who possibly have used them can let me know in the comments below. Personally, I like the Bosch stuff, but they were considerably more expensive than this stuff here, and the customer is looking to save some money. My parts guy did tell me that they were fairly decent, and they're usually fairly spot on with their recommendations, so we are going to try them out. As you can see, our rotors are fully coated. These guys here were not far off from the semi-coated. I couldn't even get an option that was non-coated for this customer. Usually I don't recommend that stuff to begin with because you end up with a rust situation like the one that we have currently with this car. This vehicle doesn't have much mileage on it, but we are replacing the brakes for the third time. I haven't done them the first time, so I don't know what the quality of stuff was that was put on. Unfortunately, it is giving the customer a shimmy when the brakes are applied, and that's what we are trying to rectify. So let's go ahead, put this thing up in the air and get started. Of course, before we get started, boys and girls, do me a big favor, hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. Now let's get to the action. First step, boys and girls, open up your hood, access your master cylinder, and remove the cap. That way, you don't have any pressure buildup when you force those pistons back. Second thing, send the car up safely. If you are doing this at home, make sure you employ the use of jack stands. If you're using a jack, preferably, you'd want to do this on a hoist because it'll make your life considerably easier. Now we can go ahead and peel those wheels off. Boys and girls, get yourself a 21 mil and you can begin smashing away. If you have a wheel lock, make sure that it is firmly in place when you go to remove this thing. Oh, great. Lubricants, my friend, very important to the success of a mechanic. As you can see there, boys and girls, a little bit of lubricant, some anti-seize or white lithium grease would go a long way. I guess no one cares because it is a leased vehicle, but yeah, well, it's not really much I can do to remedy the rust. We're just gonna have to live with it, unfortunately. Hopefully, behind the rotor, there's not heaps of rust. Anyhow, boys and girls, it is now time for us to go ahead and remove this caliper. What we're going to need to do is get ourselves a flat screwdriver and a 14mm socket. Either flex or straight, doesn't really matter. Take your flat screwdriver, boys and girls, sneak it in behind the rotor and the caliper and just pry forward like so. What you want to do, basically you're pushing the piston back, and because it's easy, we're going to just keep going. That way we don't have to use our piston tool to do the same job. Anyhow, now we can go ahead and remove those two 14mm bolts. Here and here. A little bit out of frame, but you get the point. Get yourself a 14 mil, boys and girls. I have an Impact Flex version on my Impact Areno DeWalt. Let's just hammer these guys off. Then get your favorite bungee cord and tie that caliper up so it doesn't knock you in the head or rip or damage that hose. Okay, boys and girls, now grab yourself a 19mm and you can smash off these two guys here. Should be a good test for my DeWalt. These things are torqued really high up. I think they're 122 foot-pounds or something like that. So let's see what she can do. Well, that's impressive. And it would appear that the last person who ever serviced these brakes sucked because they haven't put any lubricant on any of the bolts. And there's no lubricant on this caliper bracket. So yeah, wonderful. As you can see, there wasn't much pad removed from that pad. There's still quite a bit of life, but the rotor is complete dog shit. And this is because of shitty quality stuff. Unfortunately, he's doing brakes again when he really shouldn't have to. And it's sad because it's just a waste of money. Anyhow, go ahead now and get a hammer. If you have had someone who doesn't understand the importance of lubricant, work on your vehicle because you're going to need to smash this guy off. Let's go get a big hammer. Boys and girls, whenever you have a rotor that is stuck on, what you'd like to do is first off employ the use of safety glasses because it is important, and eyes aren't really something that are replaceable. Second thing is you want to hit the guy here or on the bottom in that same position on the edge of the rotor. Be sure, of course, not to hit anything you don't want to damage your hub. So the bigger the hammer, the better for getting a nice shock through to the rotor, but you don't want to go like a crazy person and just smash it as hard as you can because you could potentially damage your hub. So just tap it. If that's not working, try the bottom and then just oscillate. And if it's really not working, you can heat it up around here a bit, but before you do that, just try tapping it a bit harder. There you go. Now, if you're from the Rust Belt, well, boys and girls, you will see something like this if the previous person was a moron. In this case, we have lots of rust around here to clean up, so it's going to take quite a bit of time. Really, there is no point to me showing you this because it's just a pain in the ass, really. Essentially, what you need to do is work off as much rust in this area here and in this area around the hub so that we can seat our new rotor without it having any sort of wobble potentially. So, I'll show you what it looks like after I grind it down, and I'll show you what tools that I use to grind this thing down. This is a tedious, pain in the ass process created by a lack of maintenance or lack of care from other technicians who have worked on this. This sort of stuff really irritates the hell out of me because just a little bit of anti-seize or a little bit of, white lithium grease goes a long way to preventing this sort of crap. Of course, I haven't serviced this, and I'm pretty sure the last technician didn't really give a shit about who was servicing it next. So here we are. Okay, that being said, let's do the same to the rear of the vehicle. Now, boys and girls, we are looking at the back of the Qashqai. This specific Qashqai, as said earlier, is a Qashqai that has manual handbrakes. It does not have the electronic handbrakes. So, of course, I won't be showing you the process of retracting the electronic handbrakes. As for the manual handbrake setup, Nissan still decides to plague us with these stupid pins. Now, the pins, to be honest, aren't really such a bad design. It's not really an issue. It's just that Nissan, of course, in their engineering team, being Nissan, has decided to do dumb things like this. As you can see here, boys and girls, this is our top pin. This is also our brake hose. I'm not going to remove the brake hose in order to get rid of this pin. That is stupid. But Nissan, of course, wants you to jump through hoops in terms of getting off this caliper. Now, this is not generally an issue if you live in a non-Rust Belt place on the planet. The issue is, boys and girls, if this thing here is seized, it can be a real pain in the ass, especially if it's seized on this portion here. So when you're starting to put some heat up here or anything, well, your brake hose is right there, which it's just a stupid design. Usually on most Nissans, it's not very easy to get this stupid pin assembly out so that we can actually service the goddamn thing properly. I don't know if that's the case with this one, but we will see. Let's pry our caliper forward. The nice thing is it is moving. Whenever our caliper moves, that is a good sign for your sanity as well as mine. With that out of the way, boys and girls, what you want to do is get yourself an extra long 14mm wrench and then just crack this guy loose. As you can see by the amount of rust falling off of this thing, hopefully your bolts or guide pins over here retain the status of a 14mm nut. If they go down to a 13, whatever, you can still work it off. If they continue to rust away until the point where it's just rounded, well, good luck, because you're going to be removing this stupid goddamn hose to get this guy off. That is why we hate it. Now, what you want to do is once you crack it loose is wiggle the bolt back and forth and just make sure that your boot doesn't turn around and twist itself into a situation where it tears, because if it does tear, that'll be the end of your boot and you'll need to get a hardware kit. Of course, don't remove it all the way, just loosen it off, and now get that top bolt. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Luckily for me, this thing isn't super old and we were able to get them both loose. Now what you need to do, boys and girls, is remove the bottom bolt. You can remove that completely. Take note that the bottom guide pin is the one with the rubber. You don't want to somehow mix them up, although Nissan does a great job of making it impossible. This guy here we can loosen off of the car. I've got it at a weird angle, unfortunately, because I'm filming for you guys out there. So it's nice and high up, and I'm not 7 feet tall, so yeah. What you want to do is lift your caliper up and out of the way like this, so that you can get the ear on the caliper to move past your caliper bracket with your pads. And then, of course, just slide it out. Well, boys and girls, there we go. Right there, we have some rust forming on the guide pin. So, if this customer were to bring this into me after another winter, well, this would have been a very different video with a lot more F-bombs. So, yeah. Anyhow, boys and girls, what we'll do is take care of it by grinding off as much rust as we can. We're not going to go crazy with it because it is a leased vehicle. Let's see if we can sneak this pin out of there. That way we can take it over to the bench grinder and take care of things properly. Yeah, there we go. So that's usually the situation with most Nissans. Sometimes, though, you do get some where this thing is placed right in the way and you can't get the goddamn thing out. Those are the sort of pet peeves that you develop over the years as you work on certain manufacturers, because they're just stupid. I'll tell you right now, boys and girls, if you guys think this is stupid, try working on a Jeep Compass or Patriot. Oh my God, the design on the rear brakes on that thing, why? That's exactly why Chrysler is almost always going out of business. Anyhow, boys and girls, that's enough shit talk. Let's go ahead and get a 17 mil, and then we'll rip these caliper brackets off and then those rotors. Now, boys and girls, the nice thing about having such elaborate suspension in the rear of most new age cars is that there's usually some place where you can rest your caliper comfortably without having to tie it up with a bungee cord. So, of course, put your caliper into a safe place. Make sure it's not going to fall off when we start impacting this. Place your 17 mil into position. God, I love rust. Come on, just fuck on the goddamn car. Okay. Rust, boys and girls. It's wonderful. Now I'll begin hammering. God, man. Yeah, just a little bit of anti-seize would go a long, long way. Well, boys and girls, the DeWalt took it out, but it's giving me a headache with all that So we're just going to transfer over to the Ingersoll Rand and smash the shit out of this thing. We'll see how it likes this. Come on, get on there. This thing here is trying to pose as an 18 mil. It is a 17 mil. I promise you, boys and girls, Nissan quality of bolt has shown us otherwise in the 5 years this thing's been around on the planet. Once you get the 17 mil on securely, hammer. Oh, you motherfucker. Let's try that again. Better. Usually, boys and girls, that sort of thing wouldn't happen to me. The reason why it did, of course, is because my camera is in the way. With that excuse being said, we're going to remove this caliper bracket, and there you can see our rotor is not in the best of condition, but it has quite a ridge down here, which is causing our pad to bump around on the rotor, of course, causing a shimmy at high speed braking. Now, let's go ahead and work that stupid rotor off. Boys and girls, we are, of course, looking at the front of the rotor. So, boys and girls, this black plug here is something that you would remove in order to get to the adjustment for your emergency brake cable or emergency brake shoes. What you would do is, of course, retract, sending the brake shoes in towards each other, and that way we'd be able to slide the rotor off nice and easily. Of course, judging by the way this job was done previously, I don't think the person may have adjusted it, so we're going to try smashing with our hammer to see whether we can get the stupid thing off without me having to do all that work. Of course, if my guesstimation is wrong, I may be making a little bit more work for myself. Well, that looked like it released. Let's see. Come on. I was right. So, boys and girls, there is some benefit to having a jackass work on your car. This shit comes apart easily because they never adjust anything. Anyhow, boys and girls, this here, boys and girls, is one of those setups where our brake cable is on the bottom as well as our tensioner. So we will be adjusting this in order to make sure that the customer has proper function of his emergency brakes. Now, with all this disassembled, what I'm going to do, boys and girls, is clean up our hubs. I will show you a before and after of the hubs and then show you how it looks with our anti-seize on there. Make sure you do this process at home if you like your car. If you don't, well then just slap that shit together, boys and girls, and you will have brakes. I don't know how they'll function, hopefully well. Boys and girls, it is rather ridiculous, to be honest, what I've seen on this thing. Like the torque spec is there, and generally as a technician, if you're doing these sort of things, you will develop a general sense of what something should be torqued to. This is absolutely ridiculous. Like my 1/2-inch Ingersoll Rand gun had a bit of a hard time getting these bolts off that held the caliper bracket, and it's just stupidness. Like such small little things make such a big difference. If you just put anti-seize and you just put on a little bit of white lithium grease in the proper places down the road for years to come, you'll have a vehicle that is easily serviceable. Like the amount of money now that I should be charging as per an hourly rate to cover my cost, plus the amount of damage I'm doing to my goddamn body to just get these things clean, it's just ridiculous. Like this is one of the reasons why it really is a challenge to be a mechanic. Like doing so much labor intensive work doesn't make sense, especially because all this stuff is so toxic. So do yourself a favor at home, boys and girls. If you're doing your own car or you're having a technician, make sure they employ the use of anti-seize and white lithium grease and all these small little things that cost us a little bit more but gives you and other technicians a lot less headache. Like don't be an idiot like this person. Use a torque wrench, and if you don't know what the torque specs are, that's fine, but you don't have to go crazy on it and torque the goddamn thing to as tight as you can possibly get it. That being said, boys and girls, I've just done over the last like half an hour now the other 3 hubs, and really terrible shape in the front. The rear one wasn't as bad, but it doesn't take all sorts of specialty tools to do this sort of thing. This here is specifically what I use most of the time, accompanied by this guy here. This will do a really good job. It's just a medium grade cookie that will grind off most of the scale or rust that's left behind. Like I say, if you've had someone who's done the job nicely or properly in the past, you're not going to have so much work to do, and it's not going to be as painful. I'll show you the process of what I do here with this. Essentially, you need a cup that is deep enough that it will clear your stud. That way you don't mangle the thread portion on your stud. Of course, I'm going to have to put on my eyeglasses and my mask here, and then we'll get to grinding a bit, and I'll show you what you should end up with as a result. Now, boys and girls, hopefully you can see there the result we're trying to achieve. We're just basically trying to get rid of the rust and any scale that is on the hub surface here. We don't want to have an uneven surface. That way we'll have a headache when we go to mate our new rotor and potentially another shimmy. I'll show you one of the most important areas. It is the hub here. Specifically, what I am talking about is right here on the hub, because this is where your rotor will seize up and where your rim will seize up. And it is all because of the amount of rust and crap and crud that is on the hub. So do yourself a favor whenever doing brakes, make sure you clean this area. That way, when you have to change a spare tire, potentially on the side of the road, or your winter or summer tires, you don't have to kick the tire like it owes you money in order to get it off of the vehicle, boys and girls. I will continue grinding, and then we will show you how to apply the anti-seize to the hub. Once you end up with a result like this, boys and girls, where the majority of the scale is gone from your hub and you have a nice flat mating surface, you want to go ahead and grab yourself some anti-seize. This stuff here, boys and girls, will do an excellent job of providing some lubrication and preventing rust. Rust is, of course, the pain in our ass, which we like to avoid. So take a healthy dose and just spread it liberally on your hub. Now, you don't want to spread so much on that you can't see whether there is a bristle that has broken off of your brush, because that will cause the same effect that we are trying to avoid. We don't want so much on there that it bleeds on to our emergency brakes and renders them useless, because that would suck. But you do want enough on there so that the stupid thing doesn't rust. Yeah, because that's the whole point of this, right? You can douse it on quite heavily in the center or on the centering ring here, but you do not want to lambast this part with all sorts of anti-seize over towards the end of the hub here. It'll end up on your rotor or in portions of the braking system that will render it potentially useless. And this here, boys and girls, is the exact result that you are looking for. With a nice and shiny anti-seized hub, you can now go ahead and place your brand new rotor on the vehicle. Another word of advice, boys and girls, make sure that you inspect your bearings before you put them on. That way, if you have any issues that tissues won't solve with your bearing, you can go ahead and change it at the same time. Luckily, this one is fine. Now go ahead and take care of all the other hubs, boys and girls, that you've touched, and I will see you back shortly, and I'll show you how to adjust this thing. Well, boys and girls, with our hub anti-seize, we can now go ahead and place it into position. There, right here, is our adjustment. So, on the Nissan, what you want to do is have your adjuster in the middle of the two studs. Then, of course, locate the hole or access hole for the adjuster on your rotor, and then place it into position. Do not rotate it now, because we know that our adjuster is right there. It is rather hard to see inside there, so I'll need to get my big head up close so that I can adjust this. Now, the process for adjusting is essentially, or what I like to do, because I don't know what the book has said and I'm not planning on reading it, because my process has worked for the last 20 odd years and I could care less what a keyboard mechanic has to say. So grab your flat screwdriver, boys and girls, illuminate the area with a light and begin tightening. Once it is tight, what you want to do is back it off 2 positions on that actual adjuster. That's 1, and that's 2. And now there we can see that it is loose. So, boys and girls, this is how I adjust my emergency brake systems for almost every single vehicle on the market, unless it is something that is some wonderful technology that I haven't seen before. It's one of the benefits, actually, to our electronic braking systems. I don't need to adjust shit. It does it on its own, which makes my life quite a bit easier, but retracting those calipers may sometimes potentially lead to an aneurysm. That being said, boys and girls, with your brakes adjusted, what you want to do now, boys and girls, is grab that access port plug and put it back in its new home. That way you don't have all kinds of salt, grime, and crap going into your emergency braking system and then causing you to cry yourself to sleep. Employ the use of some anti-seize on the seal of the plug and push it into place. This does 2 things, of course: prevents any sort of rust, and it also prevents this thing from you breaking your thumb or nail trying to push it into place. Of course, repeat the process on the other side. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to be showing you how to clean up your caliper brackets. This is an integral part of the job. You want to make sure, of course, that you're going to get the most amount of longevity as you can from the new brakes that you are installing. So it is very important that you do this step. First thing we need to do is, of course, identify the proper side. You don't want to mix them up. So currently I am doing the right side, or what is the passenger side here in Canada. That being said, get yourself a nice pocket-sized screwdriver, boys and girls, and begin prying off your caliper bracket hardware. This stuff here, if you buy a decent pad, usually comes with your pad set. There we go. Now, of course, Nissan being Nissan, or having numerous amounts of pads that use the same thing or same sort of setup, will have these shims that are slightly different. So make sure you compare your shims to make sure that they are the same. Of course, if they're different, don't use them. As we can see here, there is the difference for us. It looks like the one rotor is vented and the other is non and solid. Other than that, they are the same. So let's dispose of these and the old ones, and now we can move towards our caliper bracket. Over here you can see there is a considerable amount of rust that shouldn't be here if this thing was serviced 2 years ago. Unfortunately, we're going to have to grind that off. So I'll show you my basic process and the result that you should end up with for this guy here, as well as this guy here. And then I'll show you how to swap in your new pads. So boys and girls, let's walk over to the vise and I'll show you how to grind this caliper. Of course, you're going to have to achieve the same result for all of the other calipers. Now, boys and girls, usually I would just take these stupid things over to my sandblasting cabinet and blast the shit out of them. Of course, I would tape off this area, and if you have one, that is what you should do because it makes life so much easier. Of course, my thought process is most of you boys and girls aren't going to have a sandblasting cabinet at home, so you should have some very basic hand tools like this, like a file. What I like to do is take this file and just file away, of course, the brunt of the rust that is there on our caliper bracket. This process can sometimes be really quick, and sometimes it can be a real pain in the ass. So take your time and just file away as much crap as you can. Do not, boys and girls, I repeat, do not remove any of the actual material from your caliper bracket. You are just looking to remove the actual rust, and that is it. So, next step, boys and girls, get yourself a wire wheel like this that will fit in this cavity and begin grinding. Of course, I'm going to do this once that stupid compressor shuts off because it's a pain in the ass when editing. Of course, boys and girls, before you start grinding, put on your eye, ear, and nose protection. It is key to a successful life. Well, at least a long life. Anyhow, boys and girls, grab your wire wheel and begin. Of course, do not hit the rubber. If you're going to, remove it. Now, essentially, boys and girls, this here is the result that we are looking for. A nice, clean mating surface that we can apply some of our zinc well-through primer to. So, this is, of course, the happy process that you will need to partake in if you are doing it with basic hand tools. If you're sandblasting, it'll be quite a bit easier. And of course, that is what I'm going to do now because I'm tired of this shit making its way into my face and beard and eyes and stuff. It sucks. It's a real pain in the ass. So, yeah, I shall be back. I'll be back. Boys and girls, we are now done with blasting our caliper brackets. What we need to do, of course, now is prep them to receive some paint. So you can use some brake clean or simply just blow them off. Of course, I'm going to use the latter method because blowing them off is much easier and less time consuming than brake cleaning them. Well, boys and girls, as you can see there, sandblasting is definitely the way to go. It definitely does make quick work of any rust, and it is very efficient. It doesn't remove any material other than rust. So, of course, you should be doing the same thing at home if you have that capability. If not, do what I showed you in the previous clips. Now, of course, boys and girls, it is now time for us to spray our caliper bracket. And that means, boys and girls, getting our favorite zinc well-through primer. Dominion Sure Seal Limited, you guys should contact me because I've shown this can I don't know how many times in my videos, and maybe you guys would like to sponsor me. Shake well. Yep, always the right. Of course, grab your caliper bracket and just hit it. Oh, I can't really see shit like that. And then spray it. It's kind of hard to tell when you sandblast it because it looks to be the same color as the well-through primer, but you can see there a clear difference, boys and girls. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish off the other caliper brackets, boys and girls, and I will see you back shortly. Now, boys and girls, for our front bracket, we will need to put these stupid springs in place. Unfortunately, the caliper hardware that came with my pad set obviously doesn't have them in place, so hopefully you guys don't have this situation at home. But what you need to do is essentially on the spring here, you want to have this pointy end pointing towards your pad, and what you're going to do is just hook that guy in there and kind of of maneuver this guy into that little slot there, and then just slide it past the hook on the tab. Not so easy, that's for sure. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but what are you gonna do? If you don't want to do this, you don't absolutely have to. What you can do, boys and girls, is just use your old ones, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with these ones. They're just ugly. Now, once you get to a state like this, what you're going to do is bend this guy past that little tab there, and then you are all set to go. This is the finished result that you should end up with. Of course, now you just need to repeat it on the other side. There is a left and right hook, so don't mix them up, and always make sure that your hook is pointed in the right direction. So just so you get this part. Stupidness. Of course, there are various ways that the pads are retained in these stupid contraptions, boys and girls. Of course, Nissan has just chosen one of the extra stupid ones for us to play with here. So, I mean, of course, if they just made things nice and easy, what fun would that be, right, boys and girls? Get your screwdriver to help you along if it's extra tough, and then slide it into place. And there we go, boys and girls. That is our finished result. Make sure whenever trying to put the springs on, you don't bend the hell out of the clip. I shall be back. With our clips now assembled, boys and girls, we can simply slide them into place. There is no left or right or front or back sort of thing, or up or down. However, they are both the same on either side of the caliper bracket. So grab your caliper bracket, line it up, and simply clip it into place. Now, as for the back, as I was saying before, there is a slightly different clip. You need to select the one that's right for your application, of course. But same process, slide it into place. It should be on there nice and snug. It should not fall off or come off easily by hand. If it is, apply some more tension to the actual clip itself. That way the clip doesn't fall off your caliper bracket when trying to assemble this whole assembly. Now I'm going to do the rest, and then I'll show you how to lubricate everything. So, boys and girls, what you want to do is get yourself some brake grease that is synthetic in nature or ceramic. And what you'd want to do is essentially dab it on to the point where there is a healthy dose that won't run out in the next couple of years, and not so much that you have it leaking on or dripping onto your pads. Essentially, this here is a healthy dose. You don't want something that's going to get onto your brakes and render them useless, and you don't want so little, boys and girls, that you're going to end up with stuff that's seized in place. Once you get that portion there where your pads will sit nice and lubricated, what you want to do is then pull out your sliders. You're going to get yourself, boys and girls, a nice rag that will wipe off all this crap and not leave any new residue on your guide pin. Wipe off all the grease on your guide pin. Inspect it for any damage or rust. Then employ your grease again and give it a nice healthy dose. You want to work it in there to make sure that it's actually sticking to your guide pin. Then what you want to do is grab another healthy dose and smother the boot in this area. Stick your slider in, and then, boys and girls, just smother it up top here. You want to make sure you get a nice coating around the neck of your slider, because they usually rot there. Luckily, this thing is nice and new. Now, you can't just leave it like this, because as you'll see there, it wants to move back out, which indicates that there's air in this boot. So grab the scruff of the boot, push the guide pin in, and then release. And there you go. She'll stay in place. Of course, you need to do the same to the opposite side. As you'll see, boys and girls, this side does not have the rubber portion. So don't mix them up and don't pull them out at the same time, because if you do mix them up, it can cause you to have a knocking sound or an annoying vibration, or your brakes not to work in the manner in which you want them to. You don't want to apply your brakes and then have them clunk every time. Most people don't usually have that happen, but I was a lucky person and actually had that happen by mixing up the two pins. And I thought to myself, well, what the hell could it really be, right? Well, that's what it was. So you don't want to pull stuff apart just because you make a simple, stupid mistake. Obviously, stuff does happen, but try your best not to have it happen to you. Lather this guy up nice, and then push it in. Grab the scruff, and there you go, boys and girls. There, my friends, is a ready to go back into surface caliper bracket. As for the rear, the process is basically the same. What we need to do, boys and girls, is of course get rid of the rust there on the guide pin. Don't mix them up, and then apply grease to this end here, and then to the threaded portion. You can use grease, but anti-seize is best. Now, with the rear caliper bracket, boys and girls, what you want to do is give it a nice healthy dose of grease inside here. What you want to do is just stick your brush in there as deep as you can, or use a flat screwdriver like I will to push the grease into the cavity. The reason why is because when you slide the slider in, it's going to collect all the grease at the top here, which will be useless. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you don't give this guy a nice healthy dose. Make sure you lather it up well. Always put a little dab up at the top here. It just helps with the grease up in the top. And now you can see there, just work the grease back and forth in there so you know that it is all around the cavity. Do that once or twice, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then just lather it up again. This is my process here. You don't have to adhere to it, of course, but you are watching this video for advice. With it all greased up and ready to go, put a dab of anti-seize here. Nothing too healthy because it'll just get wasted. And boys and girls, there is our finished product. Of course, repeat the same steps for all the other guide pins that you have, and we can go ahead and put this stupid thing back on the car. Now, boys and girls, we can slide our front caliper bracket back into place. What you want to do is gently slide it into place. Try your absolute best not to get any of the grease or anti-seize on your rotor. Then, simply thread in the bolt by hand. Once you catch the one, you can try your best to catch the other. Make sure you use your other free hand to force the rotor into the hub. And of course, before you employ the use of your bolts, make sure you anti-seize them. Once you have threaded them into place, boys and girls, go ahead and use an impact driver to run them up. Then, of course, boys and girls, grab your torque wrench, set it to 122 foot-pounds or 165 newton meters, and torque away. Now go ahead, grab your caliper, of course, unhook it from the bungee cord, and you can now go ahead and compress your piston. Now go ahead, grab your clamp, and just compress the piston if need be. I've done this already because I did it with the screwdriver. When compressing the piston, make sure you take your time, don't go too fast, and if there is any air that is trapped, simply take a flat screwdriver and gently lift the seal so that the air will come out. Do not puncture your rubber boot. Take your pads, boys and girls, and slide them into place. This can be a bit tricky. Make sure that you get your spring out of the way. Don't put it in wrong because that would suck. There we go. For the outside pad, it is a little bit more tricky. What you want to do is just slide it in like so, and there we go. Gently work it into place. Just make sure that it doesn't come apart. Of course, what you can do is take your caliper now and put it over top so you can keep your pads from flying off the vehicle. Grab your bolts that are nice and anti-seized and thread them into place. Okay, let's grab our torque wrench and we'll torque these guys. Now, boys and girls, grab your torque wrench, set it to 25 foot-pounds or 34 newton meters. And we are good to go. Let's head to the back. Of course, in the back, boys and girls, grab your caliper bracket, slide it into place gently. Try your best not to get any grease or anti-seize onto your rotor. Take your nice anti-seize bolt and thread them in by hand. Of course, we're not going to be like the last people who did this job. Make sure you liberally apply anti-seize. That way, you don't have any headaches later on. Grab your torque wrench, boys and girls. Set it to 62 foot-pounds or 84 newton meters. Now remember, boys and girls, it is extremely important that you use a torque wrench because, unlike the last idiot who did this and over-torqued the goddamn thing, if you break that bolt off in the caliper bracket because it's over-torqued or stretched, well, you're going to have a horrible day. So, use a torque wrench, boys and girls. Grab your pad set, boys and girls. This one is considerably easier than the front. There are no springs to deal with. Of course, you still have to be aware of your shims. Don't crush them, damage them, or have them slide out of place. It should slide into place nicely, just like that. Boys and girls, grab your slider. You should have the anti-seize on the one end where the threaded portion is and lots of grease on the other end. Grab your caliper. Make sure you have compressed it. If you haven't, go ahead and do so like I showed you in the front. What you're going to do is slide this guy through your caliper here. Slide this guy through the caliper hole here. Come on. See, now this is why, boys and girls, Nissan has such a stupid fucking design. Once you get your slider into place, go ahead and thread it home. Clear off any of the rust, crap, and debris that may have gotten onto your slider, and then slide it home, of course. Be sure that your brake hose is in its proper position. You do not want it to be strained in any way, because that, boys and girls, would be bad for its health as well as your financial health. Grab the other slider, be sure that the rubber is there, and slide it into place. As you can see there on camera, our boot was being pushed back, so you want to make sure that it slides over your guide pin. Now, boys and girls, grab your torque wrench, set it to 32 foot-pounds or 43 newton meters. What you're going to need to do, boys and girls, to do this top guide pin here is employ the use of a crow's foot. There is literally no other way to torque it. That being said, you definitely do not want to be like the other ape who worked on this thing and destroy this by over-torquing it, or just make it extra hard for yourself the next time. Double check that your boots are in place, boys and girls, and now we are good to go. We can throw our wheels back on this thing and take it for a test drive. Of course, boys and girls, we can now go ahead and put on our wheel, but we're going to try and stop some of this rust by employing the use of some white lithium grease. I sprayed the other wheels, and what you'll need to do, of course, is shake well before you go ahead and install your wheel. Of course, it doesn't hurt to put some anti-seize on there as well. Yep, definitely the right. The left feels weird. Give it a nice spray, and then we can go ahead and slap our wheel on. Of course, once you've threaded the bolts on by hand, boys and girls, you can go ahead and run them up with your impact driver. Now, boys and girls, set your torque wrench to 83 foot-pounds or 113 newton meters. That's a thumbs up for me. Now, boys and girls, one of the most important steps before you go ahead and take this thing for a test drive is to, of course, put the cap back on your master cylinder and, of course, to pump the brakes. So, let's go into the car, pump the brakes, and then we'll put on our cap. What you want to have happen, boys and girls, is to make sure that the pedal becomes hard under your foot. It should be hard to get to the floor. If it doesn't become hard, well, you've made a mistake and there's some issue that you're going to have to look at. So don't drive the car. Well, boys and girls, that's all she wrote for the Nissan. All we need to do now is take it for a test drive, verify that everything is in good running order and that the customer is happy with the performance of the brakes. That being said, boys and girls, that is all she wrote for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and found it entertaining. Of course, if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. And as always, thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one. That being said, boys and girls, what we are working on today is a non-electric front-wheel drive. I don't know what the fuck I just said. That being said, I say that too much now. God damn it. I can't believe what the price is. That's the brand name of... First step, boys and girls, go ahead and open up your... You get the difference. What? Difference? You retarded, Jimmy? Now, boys and girls, the nice thing about having such elaborate retarded suspension... I can't say that. Fucking compressor. Which is causing our pad to hump around. Whoopsies. Bump, Jimmy. Bump. Plug here is something that you should remove in order to take the tension or the pressure from your... Pressure? There is no pressure. Stupid. This black plug. This black plug here, boys and girls, should be removed so that you can slacken the... What the hell am I trying to say? God damn, I'm trying to say handbrakes this way, together. That I should really change over to orange glove. This black one just makes me look unfashionable. Black and orange, I mean, they go together, but on a pair of hands, I don't know, fuck. The black one is something that was dropped off in my mailbox. And let me tell you, boys and girls, these thin ones suck. They don't last very long, but yeah, we'll still give them a try, right? That's what I told myself. Anyhow, this stuff here works fairly well at preventing rust as well as preventing corrosion from forming. What? Rust and corrosion. Oopsies. Wait, no. I've got to show you how to adjust this garbage. Son of a bitch. Or if you have any confidence in my work. So bitter today. Why am I so bitter, Jimmy? It's pissed off because this fucking guy didn't do his job properly. So-called mechanic dickhead. What? That didn't make no sense. So I'll be back, boys and girls. I'm going to go grind the fuck out of this thing now. So let's go over to the Weiss. Oh boy. Oh, wrong fucking frame, Jim. Well, boys and girls, we have our caliper brackets back into place. What? Whoopsies. Well, boys and girls, as ya fucking compressor. Dominion share seal, maybe you guys should reach out. Well, how the fuck about what the fuck, man? It's so stupid. And then we will begin blah blah blah. You know, as for the rear, the process is blah 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 blah. Yeah, hold on. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. Hold on 1 second. Grab your torque wrench, boys and girls. Set it to 60 foot. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, you fucker. Clear off any of the rust, crap, and debris. Now, boys and girls, grab your torque wrench. Set it to 32 foot-pounds, or the fuck was it now? Of course, boys and girls, that time is now upon us where we can... fuck, that sounds stupid. And it won't help. Whatever. The fuck did I just say? What the fuck am I saying? I'm just irritated. If you miss it, you won't forget it, that's for sure. If the other shop that he had taken it to had done their job properly, we wouldn't be doing these brakes so far. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But of course, if the other job had done their job properly... Oh, fuck. You retarded, Jimmy? As ya